The world tells you to avoid problems, to wish for a simpler life, an easier path, a journey free of obstacles. But what if that very wish is a trap? What if the relentless pursuit of an easy life is the very thing that's quietly suffocating your potential, your vitality, and your success? There is a brutal, counterintuitive truth that separates those who merely exist from those who truly live, and it all hinges on a single, misunderstood phenomenon. This isn't about naive optimism. It's about a fundamental law of existence that, once understood, changes everything. Consider a cemetery. It is, by all accounts, the most peaceful place in any city. A vast, quiet landscape where tens of thousands of souls reside, and not a single one of them has a problem. For them, the struggle is over. The friction of life has ceased. They are utterly, completely at rest. And that is the ultimate destination for those who seek a life without problems. The chilling conclusion is inescapable. Problems are not a sign that life is going wrong. They are the definitive sign that you are alive. The more intense your problems, the more vibrantly you are living. To have no problems is to be on the way out, a slow fade into irrelevance. This is the first pillar of the positive thinker's power. They don't just tolerate problems, they welcome them as the very fuel for their growth. This philosophy was forged in the fires of American history by a breed of individuals who stared into the face of immense difficulty and did not blink. They were not whiners. They were not complainers. They were philosophers of action who understood the fundamental construction of the universe. At its very center is this phenomenon known as a problem. And they stood up to them, unafraid, because they possessed a profound knowledge. Every single problem, no matter how complex or daunting, contains the seeds of its own solution. The world is not throwing random obstacles in your path. There is a purpose to this pain, a reason for this resistance. It is quite simply that you will grow strong. There is no other way. A muscle only develops strength by pushing against resistance. A mind only develops resilience by wrestling with frustration. A spirit only discovers its own fortitude by enduring disappointment. This is the alchemy of human development. To know the current state of your own mind, you need only conduct a simple, honest test. Take a piece of paper and write down your instinctive gut reaction when a tough problem lands on your desk. What are the words that form in your mind? Is it, why me? Do you ask, why do I have all these troubles? Is your internal monologue a symphony of whimpers and complaints? If that is what appears on the page, then you have your diagnosis. You are engaging in a form of self-strangulation. The English word worry itself is derived from an old Anglo-Saxon word, wergen, which meant literally to choke or to strangle. When you worry, when you succumb to fear, which is simply worry in its most concentrated toxic form, you are not just thinking negatively. You are cutting off your own air supply, choking the creative power that resides within you. You are actively disintegrating your own personality. The positive thinker, in stark contrast, is a healthy-minded individual. They have accepted that problems are the eternal landscape of a life of achievement. So, they have developed a method, a disciplined approach to doing them in. They engage with difficulty efficiently and effectively. But their attitude is only half the story. The second and perhaps more powerful element is how they think. The very quality and manner of your thoughts are not passive reflections of your reality. They are active creators of it. You are, at this very moment, in the process of either building yourself up or tearing yourself down with the thoughts you choose to entertain. There are only two kinds of thinking, and the chasm between them is the difference between creation and destruction. Negative thinking is a dangerous, self-fulfilling prophecy. It sends out poisonous emanations into the world, which then activate the people and circumstances around you in a similarly negative fashion. It creates a feedback loop of failure. But positive thinking, real positive thinking, is not about plastering a smile on your face. It is about the conscious, deliberate act of planting a creative seed in your mind and nurturing it until it becomes a physical reality. This is not theoretical. It is a law of achievement as reliable as the law of gravity, and its power can be seen in the story of a magazine that was born at a dinner party and nearly died in a boardroom. The idea was noble, a publication filled with positive, dramatic stories of people overcoming great odds. The founders were illustrious: a governor, a famed broadcaster, a war hero, a retail magnate. They were electrified by the concept. They named it Guideposts. And in a burst of late-night enthusiasm, they elected a man to be its editor, and then promptly left him with no capital, no publishing knowledge, and a non-existent magazine. It was an unpropitious beginning, to say the least. Through sheer force of will and a small investment, the magazine struggled to life. It grew to 40,000 subscribers, but it was a fragile existence. Costs mounted faster than revenue. The stack of unpaid bills grew into a towering, terrifying monument to their failure. You could feel the weight of them, the nasty letters from suppliers paper-clipped to the front. The situation was so dire that the board of directors meeting called to address it was described as abysmally gloomy. The air was thick with defeat. In a last, desperate move, they invited a woman who had previously been a generous donor, hoping lightning might strike twice. They presented their mountain of debt. And then she delivered a verdict that felt like a death blow. She would not give them another nickel. The reason? They lacked a proper philosophy of money. Their only philosophy was to pay the bills, which meant they were constantly, obsessively, catastrophically thinking about their lack. And with stunning clarity, she revealed the core law. We lack everything because we have constantly, consistently been thinking in terms of lack. And we have thereby created a condition of lack. Your thinking creates the condition that actualizes. Your internal world manifests in your external reality. The editor protested. This sounded like unscientific nonsense. He argued that we don't control our thoughts control us. Her response was a look of pure disgust, followed by a lesson from the great Plato. Take charge of your thoughts. You can do what you will with them. She then forced the entire board to perform a mental exercise. For 15 minutes, they were to sit in silence and deliberately flush out every single lack thought from their minds. It was a mental exorcism. Once the space was cleared, she instructed them to act fast, for nature abhors a vacuum. The only way to keep the lack thoughts from returning was to immediately substitute a new, powerful, prosperous thought. She asked a simple question. How many subscribers do you need? The editor, pulling a number from the air, said 100,000. You have 40,000. You need 60,000 more. Now, she commanded, I want you to look out there and in your mind, see 100,000 people who have paid for a subscription to Guideposts. It felt like a foolish exercise. But then, he made the mistake of looking into her eyes. She was a Jewish woman, a magnificent combination of spirituality and practicality, and in her eyes, he saw what he called the exalted look of the believer. It was an unwavering, absolute faith that what the mind can see, the hands can hold. In that moment, reflected in her conviction, he actually saw them. He saw the 100,000 subscribers. He leapt to his feet, shouting, I see them! I see them! And she leaped up with him, declaring the final crucial piece of the puzzle. Now that we see them, we have them. Then they did something extraordinary. They got down on their knees and prayed. But this was not a prayer of begging. It was a prayer of thanksgiving. They thanked God in advance for the 100,000 subscribers, for the solved problems, for the prosperity that was already on its way. It was a prayer of absolute conviction. And when he stood up and looked at the table, the bills were still there. The situation had not magically changed, but the people in the room had. Changed people change situations. The director, who had been frozen in fear, was now thawed, his mind buzzing with ideas. The entire board was unlocked, throwing out concept after concept. Most were bad, but their brains were now working at full capacity. They were thinking positively, creatively, and about 10% of the ideas were brilliant. They took hold. That mountain of bills began to melt away. The energy shifted from survival to creation. The result was not a slow crawl to 100,000 subscribers. The result was an explosion. That magazine, Guideposts, did not stop at 100,000. It grew to become a publishing sensation with over 2 million subscribers, hailed as the greatest non-profit inspirational magazine in the United States. The problem did not disappear, it was solved. The lack did not vanish, it was replaced with abundance. This is the law in action. This is the undeniable proof. The positive thinker gets positive results for two non-negotiable reasons. First, they possess an unshakable attitude toward problems, seeing each one as a creative, exciting challenge packed with the seeds of its own solution. They are not afraid of the struggle because they know it is the only path to strength. Second, they practice the disciplined art of positive thinking, understanding that they are the architects of their reality, sending out positive emanations that inevitably reproduce themselves in positive results. They form a clear, sharp goal. They pray for guidance to ensure it is right. They hold that image in their conscious mind with relentless focus until it seeps into the unconscious and commands all of their resources. And they follow through with relentless positive action. This is not magic. It is the most powerful law of achievement there is.